I used to work at an old McDonald's in a rural area. I usually worked the night shifts. One night during my shift, I was working alone, and a creepy old lady appeared in the drive-thru by the outside menu where people order. Also, when I say creepy, I mean she had this weird big smile on her face, and she had frizzy black and white hair. Oh, I forgot to mention her eyes. She had black, dead-shot eyes. As I was saying, she came up to the drive-thru. She wasn't in a car, just standing there. I was a little freaked out. I had no idea what she was doing. I was just watching her with the outside camera. Eventually, she turned around and just walked in the forest by the McDonald's. I didn't see her for the rest of the night. And when my manager came in that morning, I told her everything. But she didn't seem to care, or she just didn't believe me or think it was that serious. The next night, I was working my shift as usual, but my manager was also staying there late because she had extra work to do. Later that night, the creepy old lady was there, at the drive-thru again. I watched in horror after a few minutes went by, and she turned her head to face the camera, and it was like her pitch black eyes stared into my soul, and her smile was just not normal. Then, slowly, her smile went away and turned into a deep frown. Then, she spoke only a single word. My name. I ran into my boss's office and dragged her to the camera by the window, and me and my boss saw the lady and tree line facing the woods. Then she slowly turned around, smiled, then walked back into the forest. At that point, my boss and I were panicking about what to do, so we ended up calling the police. But when they arrived, all they ended up doing was having me give them a description of what the lady looked like, then escorted us home. I ended up quitting that job, and my boss understood why and gave me the best of luck and to stay safe. That was 2 years ago. I'm now 23, and about a day ago I was watching the news, and at the same McDonald's I used to work at, a guy who worked the night shift was apparently murdered, and apparently before he died, he kept saying strange things about a lady, and showing up over and over again at the drive-thru while he was working the shift. I suspect his death has something to do with that old lady I saw 2 years back, but honestly, I'm just glad whatever happened to him didn't happen to me. My son disappeared inside a McDonald's play place tunnel, and no one believes me. They think I'm crazy, but I'm not. I just want my son back. This whole mess started because my wife Sarah and I had been arguing. Like most married couples, we had our fair share of problems, but the fighting really took its toll on Jason. It is, only 6 years old. I just wanted to cheer my son up. That's why I did it. Hey bud, you wanna go to McDonald's? He was out the door before I could even grab my keys. When Jason and I arrived at the register, the kid ordered a small fry and an ice cream cone, and I just asked for a water cup. At a tiny booth in the back, my son ate his food, then ran off to go play in the play place. A few seconds later I heard him screaming, "Dad, come with me." He was standing in front of one of the colourful tunnels. I sighed, then got up and entered the tube, right behind him. Together we crawled through the dark. Jason made quick turns, left, right, left, but I kept up, always just behind him, and those fast-moving little dinosaur socks. "You'll never catch me," he screamed. That's when it dawned on me. For the briefest moment in time I realised that I was happy. Then, after one last hard, sharp turn, something happened. I reached a dead end. That can't be right, I thought. He turned right here. But he wasn't there. He wasn't anywhere. My son was gone. All that remained was a cheap painting of the Chains mascot on the dead-end wall, smiling at me. There was suddenly something sinister about his eyes and makeup and toothy grin. It was like he knew something I didn't. I started to panic. I think I must have blacked out or gone into shock or something, because the next thing I remember was talking to the cops, and it felt like seconds later that I saw my wife, Sarah, suddenly standing right in front of me, crying and pointing a finger in my face. "Why weren't you watching him?" she yelled. I tried to tell her the truth, but she didn't believe me. No one believed me. The officers tore the place apart, but they couldn't find my son. Then they started asking questions about my drinking. I'd had my fair share of beers that night, but I wasn't drunk. The breathalyzer said otherwise. It's now been 3 months since my son disappeared, and Sarah says she wants a divorce. I've gone back to the restaurant every single day since the incident, but the manager keeps calling the cops on me. According to him, I make the other parents uncomfortable, but he doesn't understand. I told him that I have to watch the children play, because one of these days, it's going to happen again, and when it does, maybe they'll finally believe me. "We don't have a rat problem," he told me with a smile. "Just don't go poking around behind the grill. I'm a health inspector. Almost every fast food place I've checked out has rodents. Arby's, Burger King, Wendy's. We pass them, tell them to put traps out, but the rats always come back. I didn't expect this McDonald's to be any different. When I met the manager, Dave, I mentioned to him that I didn't see any rat traps. Apparently they didn't need them. There weren't any rats. And sure, the fryers were a little musty, and some of the tables could use a thorough scrubbing, but I found nothing to indicate that there were any rats at all. Which was strange. There'd been a bad rat problem here, last time I'd been at this location. We took care of it, Dave said. Without evidence of pest control? What's behind the grill? I asked. Just some grease. I was just joking. Sure enough, that's all there was. Some stains on the wall. But they didn't feel right. I arranged a surprise inspection for the following week. Dave wouldn't be there. No one will know I was coming. One of the disaffected teens who manned the register recognized me and led me back to the kitchen. I asked him if there was anything he thought I should know. Dave says we have to throw a hamburger patty behind the grill before we leave in the evening, during the shift switch. What? That sounds like a health code violation. The teen grimaced. Don't tell him I said that. A young woman perked up in the kitchen when I entered. Detective? She asked. Her voice was oddly bright. Health inspector. The woman paused for a minute, visibly deflated. My friend. She worked here. Night shift. Did Mr. Manager happen to tell her to shove burgers behind the grill? No. She shook her head. No, this was before. A few months ago. One day she clocked out, but never made it home. A smell in the kitchen clung to the back of my throat. Deeply unpleasant. It wasn't like this last time I was here. Did anyone call the police? I said. Dave said we'd be fired. The closer I got to the grill, the thicker the coppery, cloying smell became. Stung the nostrils. Reminded me of decay. I got her to help me shift the grill. It was heavy, almost felt like something was fighting us as we worked to move it. Behind the grill, we found the rats. A fleshy amalgamation of rats and burger meat, and long dark hair clung to the wall. It pulsed, a tendril reaching softly for my hand, resting beneath it. I jerked my hand back, its touch burned. A slurred mouth formed from rat teeth, dripping a wet liquid that caused the floor to sizzle where it touched. It whispered a single word. Help. One night, me and my friends were partying. We all got a little bit hungry, so we went down to McDonald's to get a couple of Happy Meals. When we got to the place, we noticed that the drive-thru was closed. We went in through the front, but we saw that all the workers were gone. But the lights were still on and the doors weren't locked. My friend said they had to use the bathroom, so we left the group. We waited a few minutes, talking about the night, deciding what to get when all of a sudden, a worker arrived. He was tall and skinny and wore a mask. There were some red stains on his shirt, and assuming it was ketchup, we moved on. We ordered Happy Meals, but when we noticed our friend was still in the bathroom, we went to go check on him. One of us stayed behind while me and my other two friends went to the bathroom. There was a grotesque smell coming from the bathroom. It smelled like shit, if you mixed shit with grass and left it out for a week. We went in, and it seemed alright, but there was a pool of red coming from one of the stalls. Assuming the worst, we barged in. We saw our friend, with his stomach ripped open and all his organs drained in the toilet, his intestines wrapped around his throat, and his arms broken and deformed. We heard our other friend scream, and when we ran out, he was being stabbed by the tall worker from before. We ran into the kitchen to grab a knife and defend ourselves. Noticing every worker was gutted and lying on the floor, the man came in with his mask off. His jaw was hanging, and you can see how his cheeks were torn. His teeth stained with blood and chunks of meat sticking between his teeth. He had a kitchen knife, stained with blood. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and he started running towards my friend. I jumped in front and stabbed him 20 times, making his body fall limp. After this, I decided that maybe Wendy's or Chick-fil-A would be a better choice.